Hello everyone and welcome back to another Fury Warrior commentary video for Mythic Uldir. This time we're looking at Mythrax. This is where I go over the fight from a progression standpoint, kind of what talents I choose, how I approach it, and kind of some decision making on a real-time basis. Well, I say real-time, I'm commentating over a kill footage, so I try and explain my decisions that I'm doing. So starting with talents, going top to bottom, I took Endless Rage, Double Time, Sudden Death, Warpaint, Carnage, Dragon's Roar, and Siegebreaker. Endless Rage here because it's simply the strongest talent in the first tier. Not much more to say about that. Double Time I'm taking because there's nothing to stun, and you can find yourself charging not all over the place, but you know it's nice to have the double charge. There's a decent amount of two-target cleave here, as well as AoE, well burst AoE I should say, which is why I'm taking Sudden Death over Furious Slash. It's a much better cleavable talent. Following that, I'm taking Warpaint. The way the encounter works is your maximum HP will reduce throughout the encounter, and there's quite a lot of HPS needed. So Warpaint here is going to help us mitigate that for the healers as best we can. Next, I'm taking Carnage. Similarly to Endless Rage, it's just the strongest talent in this tier. It kind of just outclasses and outshines the rest. Now, I'm taking Dragon's Roar here as opposed to Bladestorm. I did say earlier there was some burst AoE. However, due to the frequency of the two-target cleave, I think Dragon Roar is just going to be the better option here because it's up for every ad. It's up for every one pack in Phase 2, one AoE pack that is. And I just think it's going to be the more versatile talent here. I guess if you're really struggling with the burst AoE in Phase 2, you could take Bladestorm to kind of mitigate that, but I just largely think Dragon Roar is going to be the best choice here. And lastly, we're taking Siegebreaker because for me it's the best simming talent, both on single target and it is a cleavable talent. So it works really well. The cooldown's only 30 seconds, which works really well for the two-target cleave in Phase 1. I think you only have to hold Siegebreaker for 10 seconds-ish for the ad to spawn. And it also is cleavable onto the AoE ads in Phase 2, which makes it a very strong talent, and it's up for both packs of AoE in Phase 2, which is great. So in these videos, I try and give you kind of like good plays to make, or good decisions to make, and sometimes mistakes happen. So in this one, I will also show you what happens when you make bad decisions. So we're jumping down, we're going to pre-pop with Burst in Blood, charging in, and I'm actually going to pop cooldowns on pull because the first ad dies in plenty of time. With the ads, basically you need to get them to 50% before the third cast goes off. And I know that if I use my cooldowns on pull, we still have enough DPS on the ad to kill it in time. So this green circle on my screen basically is saying if it's red, then I'm too close to someone, and when the circle expires, the Oblivion Orbs are going to spawn. And basically you don't want to be stood on top of someone else whilst the Oblivion Orbs spawn, because you both go in there. When you get knocked out, you do AoE damage. Making sure to avoid the beams here and try and get in space, but unfortunately the tanks run on top of me there, or I was on top of the tank, whatever, and I've been knocked out into the other orb, and this is just a really bad time here happening at the moment. And I can do nothing but stand in there. And again, trying to spread for the Oblivion Orb. My ring was right there. I didn't want to get hit. And then the weight comes my way. And it's just really shit, quite frankly. But we're finally back on the boss, trying to get good space. I think it's 5 yards the radius. So I'm going to need to move out in 5 seconds with this, as it's proximity based when it expires. So instead of leaping, I'm actually going to run out, because you can have it where, like, the beam there targets me. And if I hadn't had leap there, then I would have been hit by that beam and got huge amounts of stacks. And the more stacks, the less maximum HP you have. So charging into the ad here and cleaving Siegebreaker onto the boss from it and popping Reckless as well. And just basically doing two-target cleave on the ads. I haven't really talked about how I'm handling the ads that much. You'll notice on the first ad that I get Siegebreaker back just as it hits kind of like 60-ish%, 55 maybe, so I cleave it from that onto the boss, so when it goes back up, I still have Siegebreaker on the boss. And the second ad there, I've got Siegebreaker and Recklessness. You generally, when you know the ads are coming, you're going to be saving Siegebreaker. Because I know that the next ad is not being killed, it's being ignored, we'll transition the boss, I'm going to be Siegebreakering straight into the boss here on this one, and then just doing as much damage as possible. Getting nice space as well away from everyone so that the Oblivion Orbs don't spawn. And you can follow the boss when he transitions here. Now what's going to happen here is once he goes immune, we're going to go over and start killing an ad just on the right hand side there. And then 2 beams come in, and essentially you want everybody stacked so the beam targets someone on the stack position, and then you all jump onto that rock over there, basically. So I'm going to leap onto the rock, and then you do this so that all the little eyes which spawn all spawn in one place. And basically, when they spawn, you want to have a whirlwind buff up and cleave them as soon as they spawn. I actually cleaved too early there, so I missed Siegebreaker. Again, this is a just bad play from me, to be honest. And someone's moved early, so the beams come in and hit us there. But the reason why you want to get this Siegebreaker cast done as soon as possible is because then it will be back up for the next set of ads. If you don't do it, you know, as soon as they spawn, then it just won't be back in time. And I've got Recklessness for this as well. So I'm going to pop that early so I don't waste a GCD when the ads spawn, make sure I've got the Whirlwind buff, and then cleave them immediately, Rampage, and just do as much damage as possible. Cleaving through the big main ad there. Trying to get a dragon. I think I just clipped him with a Dragon's Roar there, which is quite nice. And then as soon as this is dead, we're going to go back to phase 1. I'm going to get back to my position on the right-hand side of the boss. And then it's rinse and repeat, the same as phase 1. So we're going to get an ad soon after this bait, which will mean that I think we're second potting this because our DPS was kind of low on it. I'm going to get Siegebreaker back for it. So I'll be cleaving Siegebreaker from the ad onto the boss and just putting my cleave through the ad. And he's a bit on the far side, so I'm kind of going to charge through the boss a bit, which is a bit risky there, but we're okay. We're not too bad. And Dragon's Roar as well, like I said earlier, it's back for every ad because it's a similar cooldown to Siegebreaker, which is nice. So just going to keep going, making sure I'm spread, and beams here, which is a bit hairy. I actually get clipped by that, so I'm going to collect a couple of orbs, otherwise I'm probably going to end up dying just at raid damage, but only a couple. You don't need to like go down to 0 stacks. They're predominantly for the tanks, but I can afford to get away with it because I had so many stacks. Again, saving Siegebreaker here for when the ad comes in. We're only running 3 melee here, so there's plenty of room in melee range. Some guilds can take 4, 5, 6. We tried it with 6 the first few times, and there's just no room. It's horrible. Running 3 or 4 melee is just so much nicer. So just waiting for the ad to spawn here and making sure we're spread. I'm going to have to back out a little bit, I think, here. And I managed to find space near Skull. That's good. Cleaving Siegebreaker, got Recklessness up for this as well, and just doing as much damage to the ad as possible so we can get him to 50% before he does his second cast. Because that's really where the damage wipes you here, is when you get that second cast off, it just wrecks you. So that was, you see there where the circle expired where it is red. Again, that was poor play by me. It was very lucky. I was moving back around to position. The Oblivion Orb was coming in. Had it been on me, I probably would have caught the tank in it, which would have been very bad. But I got lucky. And I've leapt there because as I was running out, the Oblivion Orb just spawns in front of me. And then I charge into a fucking orb. So you see I'm having a bit of a mare on this one. You always need to check there's no fucking orbs in front of you when you're charging. It's just habit though. As a warrior, I'm sure you'll know that when you're out of melee range, you just want to get back in as quick as possible. So you'll be spamming charge, but you really need to keep an eye on where those orbs are spawning. So Siegebreaker is going to be coming. This is now phase 2 again. This is the same as before. We're going to be on the ad, on the red marker, getting ready to get onto the top of the rock, doing damage to the ad. Now I've got Reckless Flurry as an Azurite trait, so my Recklessness does actually come off cooldown here. However, I decide to save it for the second pack of AoE ads. But I am gonna, sorry, I am gonna correctly use my Siegebreaker this time and cleave the ads correctly. Sorry, excuse me. Moving off as soon as the beam spawns. And then saving Recklessness for the next ad. Which will be spawning after the beam countdown. So we're going to leap across. And you have to make sure you're on the big rock. So I didn't quite make it there, but I'm on the big rock now. Popping Recklessness early before the ad spawns, so I don't have to waste the global cooldown. Whirlwind, Siegebreaker, Rampage, and just doing that AoE rotation. I think, see, my Dragon's Roar there was slightly off cooldown too late. I think if you move it up the priority once you got Siegebreaker up, so maybe before the Rampage, it should be back up more reliably for that second pack of AoE ads. It's something I'll probably try next week to try and get it for every pack reliably, because I think that's a good bit of damage there. So back to phase 1 again, and this is just basically where we kill it. We'll pop Lust on this ad, and we're just going to be nuking the ad, and that's it. There's nothing really much more to it. Kill the ad, cleaving Siegebreaker, killing this as soon as possible, making sure I'm still in good space, and then back onto the boss once it's dead. Sometimes you'll see me, like, if I see the beams coming out in a very strange position where I think it's going to clip me, I'll just strafe around and keep hitting the boss. Instead of like moving out completely, I'll try and stay in range of the boss, keep hitting the boss so I can cleave through it onto the ad, and then get back onto the ad when the beam has come out. Trying to get some space again. And yeah, so it's just execute phase now. This is just going to be killing the boss. I believe we ignore the next ad, if memory serves. Because, well, the boss should be dead in time. Yeah, I think we ignore it. Got gripped out of that quite nice and quickly, which was nice. And I get Recklessness back up for execute, which is very nice indeed. So we decided to ignore the ad here because really, by the time we would kill the ad, the boss would be dead if we put that damage into him. So I'm going to cooldowns, and I got Imminent Ruin on me, which is 10 seconds. So I just decide, this is it. I'm staying in and killing it, or we're going to wipe. So I just decided to stay in and get as much damage as possible. And luckily, no, not luckily, it was calculated. It was calculated that I still had 1 second left. So as I said at the beginning of the video, hopefully I've given you some tips you can use there, and some things definitely not to do. Staying spread for the obliteration orbs when they come in is very important. You can give your raid so much unnecessary damage, which I did on 2 occasions there, which is very poor on my behalf. And also always check where you're charging. Make sure there's nothing in the way. Running out when you have the imminent ruin is handy, because then if you get targeted by the wave, then you can leap out the way of the wave instead of having to try and waddle out the way. And saving Siegebreaker for cleaving the ads in both phase 1 and 2, and possibly using Dragon's Roar quite early on the small ads before the rampage, because then it should be back for the second set of AoE ads in phase 2. I think that's it. Quite a lot here, but I actually quite enjoyed this boss once we trimmed the melee down to only 3 people. When there was like 5, 6, it was really just, it was a mess. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Good luck, and I will see you on G'huun, finally the last boss of this tier. Yeah, see you on G'huun. Don't know when it's going to be out yet, but watch this space. Cheers.